This is Three Friends and All the Things podcast, sponsored by Trees Company, located in Port Elizabeth, New Jersey.
Axe and Arrow Brewery, High Street, Glassboro, on Rowan's campus.
KMT Consulting Group, 900 Haddon Avenue in Collingswood. This is Three Friends and All the Things.
Welcome to the news according to Three Friends, the part of the show where three friends try to make sense of the news, and usually end up making fun of it instead, because, let's be honest, is it really that important or serious? Or did we just swirl out and move on? Either way, crap. This is the news according to Three Friends.
Welcome to Three Friends and All the Things podcast. We are back today with Chris, Dave, and guest host Joe. Today's topic are the missing scientists that are going missing and or dying in, recent daily news since, I guess, the end of last year going into this year. Do you want to bring us in with that, Chris?
So we're trying to figure out, what is going on in the world. Joe knows a lot about this topic. We've been following it on the news, but he's definitely more well-versed in this than I am. Do you want to take it away?
Yeah, the big thing is, who are these people? One of the big things is, who are they and what do they do? What kind of research are they doing for the government? I find it interesting. Out of the 11, 6 of them are specifically focused on energy. That's kind of interesting in its own way because, they're like Anthony Chavez. He does extensive research into nuclear energy and weapons systems, and he spent decades working for the government for national security research. There's other ones,
There's Melissa Cassius. She went missing in June of 2025. She worked for the Department of Energy Nuclear Research Infrastructure, and she also held a security cleared position at the facility. Now, her disappearance is often grouped in this list due to proximity and timing of the other Los Alamos National Laboratory cases.
Yeah, and then you got Stephen Garcia, who worked for the Department of Energy, and he worked in basically nuclear stockpile management and high security defensive logistics. And, a lot of these people, a lot of the 11 are kind of in the same region or lived in the same region or worked in the same region as Nancy Guthrie, which I'm not too sure if that connects to anything, but I just kind of found it interesting. And then you have...
we have Amy Eskridge. She passed away in June of 2022. She was a non-conventional energy source and anti-gravity theorist. She was very vocal, and she questioned conventional aerospace models and was researching nanoparticles and interdisciplinary physics.
Now, I had kind of... I found this portion very interesting because nanobubbles has been around for a long time, and nanoparticles, they just recently have equated nanobubbles to nanoparticles. And we've been using this technology, and we've been kind of developing this technology. And I know someone quite close to both me and Chris that has been doing research in this area. And he believes that all this communication is being monitored. He doesn't really know who. He thinks maybe the United States government. And it's he has a well-established protocol in case something happens to him. If he shows up missing or if he's killed, he has an established protocol with his family on what to do.
Yeah.
So this has kind of been on his radar for as long as he's been doing research.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
so what do you think?
What I've seen so far, a lot of that, I agree with you guys. A lot of that ties into the UAPs or UFO phenomena, because a lot of these people that are involved have been involved with anti-gravity, the God particle, and they've dealt with a lot of the scientists and the military people that are high up that have these types of clearances. And these guys are, since disclosure has come out, and you had, David Urish, who was on the council, and he was sitting there, and they asked him flat out, they said, have you ever felt that your life was in jeopardy? And he said, absolutely. I've been threatened job-wise, and I've been threatened physical harm. So a lot of these people some of the things that I'm seeing, like for or General McCaslin, with him just
Oh, he's
getting up,
another guy.
leaving,
That's a name that keeps
leaving all his
popping up.
personal
Yeah.
items behind, and then just walking off into the sunset like nothing. Like there's nothing. He's nowhere to be found. Nothing. So
You know,
my thinking with that is a lot of these people either one are disappearing on their own because they know that their life's in jeopardy and they have backup plans to take them out of the picture so they can't be found, can't be killed. And they have, I'm sure, like if it was me and I was in that type of position and I know my family's in danger or I'm in danger, my life's in danger, like your buddy has protocols set up. Like I have information out the wazoo that if I disappear and I don't come back, the send button goes and all my information goes everywhere and it becomes public to every media outsource that there is. It's getting brought out and it's going to crash everything. So I think a lot of that's tied into this topic right now.
you made a really good point about UAPs. So the Department of Energy, in the projects, it's well established that the Department of Energy kind of has like the oversight. It's not the Congress. The Department of Energy has the oversight of what with the CIA, with what the Air Force is doing on any kinds of investigations on UAPs. And the fact that 6 of these scientists are energy related scientists and the ones doing anti-gravity, microgravity experiments, that's out in the open. But think about the amount of energy. The Artemis 2 just landed. 17,000 miles an hour, comes down in the atmosphere, almost burns up, has to have heat deflecting shields. And these UAPs that they're having, they can do right turns and go 10,000 miles an hour. And they go in and out of the atmosphere with no problems at all. They're not burning up. They don't have heat shields. They're just a 40-foot long bubble that looks like a Tic Tac. And they're going in and out of our atmosphere like there's nothing to it. And then they're going down into the ocean without creating any waves. Think about the amount of energy that it would take to do that type of thing, to overcome the atmosphere as you're entering. We can't do that on the Apollo, on the Artemis missions. So for this kind of research, and then for this kind of research for the UAPs, and then they're finding all these UAPs, and part of the people who are looking into it is the CIA and the Department of Energy. They have responsibilities for it. And the Air Force, that makes sense. But all the reports of the UAPs just smoking our 5th generation fighters, F-22s, F-35s, everything we got goes faster than a SR-71, can make a right turn on a dime with all those Gs.
I was going to say these Tic Tacs are able to turn on a dime.
But everything that they're finding,
reverse engineered.
It's ironic that everything that they're finding is a lot of it's energy related. And what they're finding is you don't hear of an Air Force report because the Air Force is part, and you can't tell me that Air Force doesn't have assets flying around seeing these UAPs. Only the Navy does. Only Navy carriers can find them. The Air Force has F-35s and F-22s. What are they hiding? But you mentioned William McCaslin, who's and his thing, he was the guy for direct energy weapons. He was the man. He had it. And when you think about Operation Absolute Resolve, what did they say? They had Cuban special forces. They had a fort that was basically protected by 300 Venezuelans, at least, known, over 100 fatalities on the other side, estimated 100 to 350 injuries. And then the United States, no casualties, 7 injuries in the operation. 5 of them were so minor, the guys were back to work and on duty 3 days later. And everybody says that the U.S. used some kind of energy weapon to shut down every single piece of electricity simultaneously in a metropolitan area, probably the size of Philadelphia.
I
How
can
do you do
believe
that?
that.
Yeah. So,
I
and
can believe
who's
it.
the guy that knows everything about it? Neil McCaskill. And then
Now,
Yeah.
he just walks off.
now, okay, there are persistent claims, but nothing has been verified. Okay, but he did disappear under unclear circumstances. So let's be precise here. Okay, there's no confirmed public evidence of an official disappearance. Some people are saying he walked out of his house on his own free will. Other people are saying that he randomly disappeared. Okay, but the story persists. Okay, and in this world, persistence matters because sometimes information doesn't spread because it's proven, it spreads because it's never fully resolved. Okay. And unresolved things, they just don't go away. They sit there quietly like a file marked incomplete. So, you know, why would the government hide all of this stuff? Is the question.
I think
Well,
the government now is starting to find out that they can't keep it hush hush anymore. I think since Roswell happened, we've been re-engineering their technology for our own use. And I think I mean, people are going to call me crazy or nuts, but I think we've been in cahoots with these
I
aliens.
thought your name was Dave, but we can call you crazy if that's what you
Crazy's
want.
good. Crazy's good. I've been called a lot.
Okay.
But I said I've been called a lot. But the aliens that we either one captured, two helped back to health because they crashed here. We gave them things, they gave us things. I think all this ties in together, and I think now it's getting harder and harder to keep it hush hush because since they've made disclosure happen, now there's force to let it out. And I think the people that are involved, these higher ups like McCaslin and others, they want to come forward, but I guess the government's looking at it. Well, if we can't control the population by keeping them quiet, we can control the people that we have under our thumb. And if we have to, we can get rid of them so none of the other information comes out. So I think it's kind of coincidental or ironic that all of a sudden now it's went from disclosure to now Iran is kidnapping our scientists to use them for nuclear stuff. They're going to make a nuclear weapon on us. They're taking our top-notch scientists to create nuclear weapons, which I think is bull. I think it's all a cover-up.
So here's the thing with Iran, and every single, and I know some people who have been in special forces, and every single one of them when they go on a mission, it's capture or kill. You see it in every single one of the movies. Yellowstone, Casey Dutton, is this a capture or kill mission? This is a kill capture mission. And that's what they ask. They want to know what's the rules of engagement. And this is a kill or capture mission. Jack Ryan, you name it. That's pretty much true for the CIA and everything else. And when you mention that, Iran, who is the top dog on killing other people, that could be a threat to US, to the US? We are. And how many scientists and how many nuclear scientists have us and the Israelis, right or wrong, have taken out in Iran?
Other countries.
Yeah, not just Iran,
countries.
but other countries, because we can't have them, and I agree, we can't have them have a nuclear weapon because they'll use it.
Well, we kind of did the same thing when Hitler happened. We took a lot of his scientists that were doing things, and we brought them to the States and used them for our own purposes.
And so who was the other? Who was the guys that did a better job than that? The Russians. And when we have Elon Musk that came out today and said, we have to have hypersonic missiles, and we have to have autonomous hypersonic missiles, and we have to be on the cusp of that technology. Who do you think would be interested in that? The Russians, just like they did in World War II. The Russians didn't come up with the nuclear bomb. They stole it from us. The Chinese didn't come up with the SR-71. They stole it. They stole that technology from us. The Russians didn't come up with the space shuttle. They stole it from us. Everything that they do is they steal from us, and they steal our scientists. They steal our science. China is well known for stealing our technology. But, out of the 11 scientists, the guy that I feel is the most interesting is Nuno, I'm going to miss his name, Lorio. And this guy was the director.
Guy you're talking about.
This guy, he died in December 2025. Healthy guy, just died. I'm not too sure too much about his death. You guys do anything about his death or know about his death?
No, I just know he was one of the deceased ones. Was kind of fishy.
Yeah, but this guy was the director of MIT Plasma Science and Fusion Center. So the Plasma Science and Fusion Center at MIT, he was the director, and his promise was to use fusion to solve humanity's biggest problems through fusion power. And just think about that. What would happen if we found an alternative to oil as an energy source? Now,
My God.
fusion, we have been doing fusion since 1951. Was the first time that a fusion reaction in the United States, who knows where else, but 1951. And hydrogen, we've been making hydrogen, and we've been making cheap hydrogen for a long time. But we don't influence hydrogen. Hydrogen almost made it, but we don't influence hydrogen because that would do away from oil. And we have been able to separate the hydrogen and the oxygen. We've been able to desalinate water using energy, separate the hydrogen and the oxygen, and use the oxygen for our nuclear submarines since 1957. Now, if you think about these two things,
when it comes to money and you start to come up with an alternative source other than oil for stuff, that starts to make people mad. So it's just like anything else, like the cure for cancer. Like if we had a cure for cancer, do you think the pharmacists and the drug companies and the doctors that all participate in making money off of the fact that people have cancer, they have a cure for cancer, how much money's lost?
Well, we go to fusion and we develop fusion, a cheap version of fusion. We develop a cheap version of fusion. The pharmaceutical companies will lose greatly because with the development of quantum computing, AI, and the ability to use fusion as an energy source, we can create so many more things a lot cheaper. And the pharmaceutical companies will be one of the companies that'll have a financial crisis. Here's the thing.
Suffer.
When it comes to fusion, and when it comes to the use of cheap hydrogen, when we compare what we do with cars, computers, any other technology, cell phones, the phone system, think of how we've gone so far since 1957, 51. Does anybody really believe that we have not gone a distance off of what we were with fusion since 1957? That we don't have scientists that have advanced anything with fusion since 1957? I mean, look at our phone system now. Look at our phone system.
Yeah,
we haven't gone any farther with any of these technologies.
Yeah, we have. Then they're just keeping it quiet because there's so much money involved. But it's an interesting topic, and to bring it together.
And one of our favorite people. That's a good point. As one of our favorite people is
Tommy Norris. Tommy Norris once said, "Good and bad don't factor into this. Our great-grandparents built a world that runs on this shit right here. Until it starts running on something else, we've got to feed it or the world stops."
Yep.
Yeah. Which is a good point. Because with these scientists, if we use an alternative, here's the other thing too. Who's the biggest supplier of oil and gas to the world?
The Middle East.
No.
The Middle East.
The United States.
Whoops. Sorry. That's what I meant. United States.
Well, here's the thing to kind of close it out with that. We have our own oil. We have our own gas, but we don't want to use our stuff. We want to steal from Peter to give to ourselves. And that's this whole entire thing's been over oil and gas and this and that. And it doesn't end. It doesn't end.
It's a world commodity. So it's because we have it all. We just can't use it for us. There's a price to it. But if we use fusion, like the guy that's dead from MIT wants to solve the world's problem, the world problem will be stock market crashes.
Yep.
Our economy will drop like a rock. How many people work at gas stations right now?
Yep.
And the only reason, if we use fusion, the only reason why we'll need any kind of oil products is probably for some pharmaceuticals, but basically as far as lubricants. Because everything, the trains, the ships, everything that goes on anything, when we can produce fusion from water and produce energy from water, desalinate it, produce fusion from the hydrogen in the water and do it cheaply, inexpensively, there'll be no reason for any of it. And it won't be a crisis of people losing jobs. It'll be a worldwide crisis severe to the financial markets across the world. The Middle East is the second largest producer. What will they be doing? They'll be back on camels. They'll be back on camels. They won't be, the richest countries in the world will no longer be richer.
This is another good episode. Thanks for sitting in, Joe. You had a lot of more than I had.
Before we go, we are doing a new thing here at Three Friends and All the Things, and that is getting tattoos and piercings in order to support our sponsors.
Chris, well, this is probably kind of cool because Chris, in supporting Tree's company, has this beautiful tree tattooed on her arm.
There's my tree. There's my tattoo. Yes. And Joe decided that he was going to go and get a KMT Consulting tattoo on his forehead on the promise that KMT will be doing his taxes for free for the rest of his life.
Next episode, Dave's going to show his support with the Axe and Arrow Brewing by getting a beer bottle surgically removed from an orifice.
Okay, we're going there.
Now, go ahead, Joe.
So, wait.
No,
you're going to get your taxes done for free for the rest of your life. That's what I was told by KMT because you got the tattoo on your forehead. Yeah, and Chris promised. Yeah, Chris promised that he's going to get the taxes for free, but I'm not too sure what Chris meant because we talked about that tree and that tattoo, and I'm not too sure what she meant when she got the tree tattooed on her arm. She was promised a free tree trim, and I'm not too sure what that is.
But all I have to say is thank goodness none of the sponsors are proctologists because we know they have a license to probe and they have their eye on Jay. So from Three Friends and All the Things, this is Dave, Joe, and Chris. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to us on our social media, like us, and subscribe. Until then, stay safe, keep it real, and remember who you are.
Shout out to all the Harley riders, especially the ones in Wisconsin.
Thanks for listening to the show. Be sure to like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. See you next time on Three Friends and All the Things podcast. Real talk, real people. New episodes drop every week, so hit follow, leave a review, and tell your messiest friend to listen to. You know the one I'm talking about. Until next time, keep it real, keep it loud, and keep doing all the things.